This is Inside Town Hall, a behind-the-scenes look at city government and the issues affecting you and your family.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Inside Town Hall. I'm your host, Madeline Shields. Coming up in the program, we have a lot to talk about. Everything from the Neighborhood Watch program to beekeeping. Our guest is City Councilor Theresa Stehly. We'll have lots to discuss. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
Cleaning sidewalks after a snowstorm helps ensure the safety and mobility of our entire community. This is important especially for senior citizens and people with disabilities. What's inconvenient to you might be dangerous or even life-threatening to them. Be sure to shovel your sidewalk edge to edge, and if your property has a curb ramp, be sure to clear that entirely as well. Residents and businesses alike must clear their sidewalks within 48 hours after the end of a snowfall or face possible citations. Do your part to keep Sioux Falls safe.
Well, welcome back to Inside Town Hall, where our guest this time is City Councilor Theresa Stehly. Thank you for joining us for Inside Town Hall. When we think of February, oftentimes we think of the month of love, and you are wearing red. So let's talk a little bit about what you wanted to talk about, how people should interact and how they should engage each other.
And first of all, let me say how much I appreciate you, Madeline, and you do such a nice job on hosting these shows. I'm battling a cold, so forgive me here. But just so the citizens understand that once a year, the City Council, each of us get a half an hour a month to have this interaction with Madeline and to reach out to our people. So I appreciate this time. And I wanted to start out, as it is, of course, the month of February, talking about love. And through my 2.5 years on the council, I keep coming back to the reason I ran, because I love the people. I love this community. I want to give back, and many of us do. It's a time to forgive one another, especially during this divisive time in our country. We need to be working to come together and again, to forgive, to find the common ground, and to realize that we're all human beings. I lost my mother this fall, and our councilor, Pat Stargett, lost his father. And it really is imperative that we tell people we love them and we care about them now. Don't wait. So let us do everything within our city government with love as the basis to serve our citizens as we work together to make this a great community. So that's my opening message.
Well, thank you. And you know, that is always a good message, is to love your neighbor and get to know one another, because we're not that big of a city.
No. Well, in the state and wherever we're at, it's caring for one another is imperative.
Okay, we're going to turn a little bit other more business type conversations. Let's talk about the budget priorities that you have for the city of Sioux Falls and what the city council is looking at with the budget.
Well, I was hoping to have a meeting, and we had this plan, but because of the cold snap that we had in January, it had to be rescheduled. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be coming together and throwing around some ideas that we have within the council for budget priorities. And in the midst of that, I said to myself, well, you know who really is the driving force on our budget should be our citizens. So on my Facebook page, I put that out several times now, asking people what they would like to see in the budget. And some of the things I've heard from people, many comments, and I still invite people to come on to my Facebook page and interact with me. You can email us, you can call us, you can come to the council meeting and talk to us. But I'm hearing people talk about they want the bus lines expanded. Street maintenance, of course, is always a big priority. More police officers. People would like to see some free services, like ability to visit the Butterfly House free, go into the Pavilion Art and Science Center free. More attention to senior citizen safety are some of the things. People want smarter stoplight flow. So just all sorts of things coming together, and I'm going to be gathering up these things and other ideas that I have, and hopefully my colleagues will bring those together as well, and we can meet early on before the budget's formalized and let the administration know that these are some things that are important, and maybe they can possibly work some of that in early on before it's formalized.
Okay. Well, that kind of goes right into the next topic that you wanted to talk about, is reaching out to the citizens. What is your advice for folks who want to get involved in our governmental process? What should they do, and how do you engage people?
And again, coming back to my first slide here, if I can just bring this back, when we talk about loving our citizens, they are what this government's about. Let's face it, it's their money that's keeping this thing operating. The taxes, the fees, everything that they put forth, it's from them. So I'm always trying to find ways to listen to them. I make my annual trip to the Benson Flea Market this month, where I'm meeting with people. I'm going to tell you what, going out to this venue is like the heartbeat of our community, because people, they're so grateful to be able to talk to somebody, an elected official. I also put out a Stehly report, and I've been putting that out in the shopping news the first of every month. And sometimes I do a mailing on that as well, just to touch base with the citizens and say, hey, this is what's going on. These are some of the pressing ordinances coming up, issues that may help you. One thing that I've got in the Stehly report this month is talking about the elderly tax freeze, that people, for their property taxes, they can get some help if they fall into certain guidelines. So sometimes they're not aware of that. So those are things that we do. Facebook has been a huge thing for me to reach out to citizens. I try to put stories up from the media about what's going on. Sometimes I put my own opinions up there. Sometimes I share personal things. It's just kind of a potpourri of a get-together, and people are very appreciative of that. So also watching our city council meetings, staying engaged, getting the paper, which more and more people, unfortunately, are getting disconnected from that too. So it's a challenge to keep people informed about what the current issues.
Do you see that people are more interested in what's going on in our local government, or less interested? And what are you finding?
You know, up until, well, of course, we just had a mayor's race. So I think right now things are kind of coasting, because people have great confidence in our new mayor, Paul Tenhagen. And so there hasn't been anything real contentious yet to engage them. It's kind of those crisis issues that brings people to the table. It's also when something comes up that's in your own backyard that brings people to the meetings as well. So I think we're kind of in a honeymoon stage right now, and which is good. And I hope we continue to have that harmony and just working to keep people satisfied.
Okay. One of the next thing you were hoping to talk about was our city ordinances. What would you like to talk about? Like, what's the process to pass an ordinance?
And you know, I was involved with the city government for 12 years as a citizen, and I've learned so much since I've been on the council about the mechanics of how things work. So I just wanted to touch upon the ordinance process. Ordinances are our laws that we pass for our citizens that they're constantly kind of ebbing and flowing. We also have what we call a resolution. So for an ordinance to pass, I just want the citizens to understand, for an ordinance to get on the books, we have to have 2 council members signing on for it. So I can't just have an idea and say, well, I think I'll bring this to the council. I have to get a colleague to sign on with me on that. Now, on the other side of that, the mayor and his administration doesn't have to do that. So he can put any ordinance forth that he wants to. So he's kind of got a little bit of an one-upmanship on us on that thing. He's got more ability to put things through. But so once I get an idea and we say, well, like I'll use the example of the park board ordinance I had a year and a half ago, to have districting in the park boards for representation. I had a citizen sign on, Councilor Neisert signed on with me, and then a lot of times what we do is we'll do an informational, just to brief the council and the community on what we're going to be bringing, and then we have what we call a first reading, and so we announce it to the community. We vote on it, and now the citizens can come and give input at the first reading, and then a week or 2 later we'll have a second reading where we do the final vote on it. And so that's an ordinance. And then we also have what we call resolutions. And with a resolution, again, you have to have 2 council members sign on, but that is a one-time vote. So that's why I think it's imperative that if there's a resolution passing, that, for example, we're going to get into street vacations in a minute, but if it's something that's a one shot at it, the citizens really have to know what's coming. The most discouraging, disheartening thing for me is when in the past, when things have passed and people weren't aware it was coming. And then after we vote, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know about this. And that should never happen in our community.
Do you think, I guess sometimes the citizens need to work to be informed of what's going on with the city, and not just city, but state, county, just to know what's, stay abreast of what's going on in their local government?
Exactly, and as we've grown as a community at 180,000 is what they're saying, we're more disconnected in Sioux Falls than ever. Our media, the TV venues might show like a smidgen of what's going on, and so people just don't know the issues at hand. Some people, more and more people are watching CityLink. They're watching our meetings, which is wonderful, but they're just not getting the message ahead of time, so they're not informed. And you're right. It's our duty to stay informed. In a smaller community, it's easy to do because you're visiting at coffee shops and people they understand what's going on. Transparency is just built in because of the smallness and the conversation. But in Sioux Falls, people are just they just don't know. So I take it personally as a goal to help people understand. Even if I wasn't elected, if I was just a citizen, I would still be working to help people know what's going on, because I just think that it makes for a better community. And it also, we get better behavior from elected officials when they're being watched, when they have to be accountable to the citizenry.
What's your advice for people who are maybe the ones who come back and say, well, I didn't know this was going on, and it happens after the fact, and then they're upset?
Wow. Well, it's very hard to go back and undo something that has already passed. So that's why you kind of got to get ahead of it before it happens. And again, to me, the biggest tool I found is Facebook. I put it out there well in advance that things are coming. A case in point, this is veering off a little bit, but there's been discussion about taking our garbage system, which is right now privatized, and sometimes a neighborhood is serviced by 3 or 4 garbage haulers, taking that and streamlining it into quadrants of designated garbage service. Now that would reduce wear and tear on our streets, but I put that on Facebook that could be coming. Oh my gosh, wow, you should have seen the reaction I got, because people are saying, we want to be able to pick our own garbage hauler. We don't want that mandated. Another thing that I've put out that has kind of given people a heads up has to do with Frank Olson Pool, because we're in the midst of doing a study with our park department, and there's been rumblings in the past that Frank Olson Pool could become a spray park. And I'm totally devoted to outdoor swimming for our children, and I know some of my colleagues on the council are as well. And so I put that on Facebook to the people. Watch, Frank Olson supporters, you better be aware that this could be on the docket for demolition. And people appreciate that. And I'm letting the city know as well that people are going to be aware that this could be coming. So those are just some instances where getting ahead of the game is a very good thing for our community.
Okay. Well, we have a lot more to discuss. We're going to talk about street vacations and neighborhood watch programs. But at this time, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Holmes with Falls Community Health. Living in the Midwest, we know that the winter months can come with some challenges. For some, this might include changes in mood and an impact on mental health. Seasonal affective disorder is a condition that often occurs in the fall or winter and may either cause or worsen depression. This condition is common and can lead to a loss of interest in activities you enjoy or cause feelings of sadness or hopelessness. Other symptoms may include changes in appetite, energy level, and memory. Sometimes seasonal affective disorder can be so severe to cause thoughts of self-harm. but fortunately, this condition is treatable with use of light therapy, counseling, or medications. Exercise and proper sleep habits are important for maintaining good physical and mental health as well. If you have questions about seasonal affective disorder, contact your doctor or Falls Community Health.
Welcome back to Inside Town Hall, where we are visiting with City Councilor Theresa Stehly. We have a lot of topics that you like to discuss this month. One is street vacation. Tell us a little bit about what that means.
You know, I didn't know what street vacation meant before I got on the council, and a lot of people that I visit with don't know. When we talk about street vacation, it's when we take a street that's a residential street, and we allow usually a developer to close that street. And so if you think about around town, the Billion Auto situation over on 41st, we had a street closure over by there's Zomer Motors. We had Lake Street was closed a while back. And once they happen, you kind of tend to forget there was even a street there. But we are right now, we've had this issue of Lifescapes over by 26th and Elmwood. And that's it used to be Crippled Children's Hospital, and they took some homes out along Elmwood, and then they wanted that rezoned to put a parking lot in, and then they wanted us to close that street.
So we're talking about like in the VA area,
exactly,
neighborhood.
The VA neighborhood, yes. And this was really my first instance in dealing with this. And so to vacate a street is a very important issue, and the state of South Dakota has mandated you have to have a supermajority of the elected body to do that. So in Sioux Falls, we have to have 6 council members have to vote to vacate a street. So you have to. What happened is when it first came through, 3 of us said no. 3 said no, and so the deal was off the table. So it was brought back again. To vacate the street. And in the midst of this, you have a pull, Madeline, between allowing a business to expand and then protecting a residential street, the integrity of the residents. And this is happening more and more in our community because we're growing. And we've got 2 huge hospitals in the middle of our city that have been surrounded by these affordable homes. So the pull is how much do we allow business to expand into that? And so street vacations are, again, when we take a street that's existing and we close it off for whatever it is. We've had a few instances where we've had street vacations and it's been like a street that hasn't been used, or it could be like in a warehouse area and they want to close that. And to me, that's a very easy decision because there's no homeowners involved in that process. But when you have something like Elmwood and you've got residents coming out and saying that's a street that we use, a through street from 26th to 41st, and we'd like to keep that open, that makes it a harder decision because you're weighing that against letting a business expand for parking needs.
Okay. And as you move on, you wanted to, this goes a little bit into there about neighborhood protection and neighborhood watch.
Yes, and neighborhood protection, and more in our community, again, we're having this debate, and we've had several contentious issues in front of the council where we're dealing with a lot of vacant land, and a developer wants to put in an apartment complex. And in some instances, that lot may be, that proposed apartment complex could be 20 feet from the property line of a residential group of homes. And so we're in a quandary between property owners' rights and protecting our neighborhoods and our community. So that's been one thing, is where do these apartments go? And we've got a need for affordable housing. We've got people who need to live someplace, but then we have these existing neighborhoods. And I think that we need to be looking very carefully at, the transition element of, do we let a 3-story apartment go right next to, again, in the backyard of these existing homes? Or do we have like a twin home, townhouse, kind of a transitional thing happening? It's a difficult issue. But when we talk about affordable housing, another thing that's coming up has to do with these inner neighborhoods. Let me take the Sanford area. I live by McKinnon Park, or McKinnon Hospital, and we have seen these neighborhoods vanish. These quaint homes, the established neighborhoods, they vanish. They have been demolished, sometimes moved out with very expensive reconnections, by the way. To take a house moderately priced and move it somewhere else in Sioux Falls is extremely expensive to reconnect because we have so many regulations. So I would say 99% of the time these things are being demolished.
Do you think there's not a demand for those smaller houses? Because, you know, frankly, I think newer generations, they're used to living a certain lifestyle, and they maybe don't want a 1-bedroom with 1 bathroom or a small 2-bedroom.
I will tell you that there is a huge demand for that kind of a home, and to get into home ownership. And there's a rising concern about losing these neighborhoods. If you drive on 7th Avenue by McKinnon Hospital, you're going to see lovely neighborhoods. And I just became aware that Avera owns 45 of the homes in that neighborhood, and another landlord has 19 of those homes. So they're all rental properties, which has taken away the home ownership availability for somebody else. I live in one of those kind of homes. People used to raise their families in those homes.
Right.
And they're in established neighborhoods. They're not trashy, they're very lovely. But we'll never reproduce those. As far as getting into home ownership, first-time home buyers, you're never going to be able to build a house that's going to be that affordable. So I think we're at the point, for me personally, and I know this won't be popular with the development community, but I think we have to start taking a stand and saying we're going to be working to preserve these inner city neighborhoods. If we want to do development, we're going to have to look at the outer part of our community where we have open space to have that happen. You know, it's taking and demolishing a bunch of homes for a parking lot or an office building, I think needs to be looked at very carefully.
Okay. And a couple of other topics you have are beekeeping in the city.
Beekeeping, and we're going to be talking about beekeeping. We had an urban egg task force several years ago that dealt with goats and chickens, and we already had some ordinances about how many pets you can have. But beekeeping came in at the very end and was not included in the ordinance. So I wasn't aware of that this was even an issue until the Argus Leader did a story about it, saying that it was illegal to have any kind of bees in our city. So I'm bringing together people to start a community conversation about how we can maybe make something legal. As an organic gardener, I love bees. I think bees are essential to the existence of our society, and they're being attacked by herbicides and lack of places for them to flourish. So if we can have some kind of a ordinance that will allow people to keep bees, maybe with a permitting system, I don't know. We're gonna be talking about this with people who are doing it throughout our state already. But I think it can be a really a positive thing.
Sure. And I think a lot of people aren't aware that I think South Dakota is one of the leaders in beekeeping in the nation. There are a lot of beehives in South Dakota, but usually in the rural area.
Yes, and we're going to be talking about the thing that brought this up is that they were doing a seminar on beekeeping out at our Arboretum here in Sioux Falls. So it's kind of ironic that we're teaching people about it, but we actually don't allow people to do it in our community. So again, this could turn into something that would be an ordinance. So where we would have people, two of us saying, let's change the ordinance, tweak it a little bit, and then let people, encourage them to bring some bees into their yard.
Right. And we are just about out of time. Let's quickly talk about the emerald ash borer and the cold weather.
I just wanted to, the emerald ash borer, I know we've been hearing reports that this Arctic air that we had was going to kill a big hunk of the ash borer population. But what I'm hearing from the city, I just wanted to let the citizens know that we're still on course to cut these trees down, remove them, continue to treat them as a homeowner if that's what you've chosen, the course of action. But just because the population's been annihilated, or not totally annihilated, but cut down, I think we're still going to be on course with Plan A on that.
Does that include the eggs? The eggs can still hatch, I believe.
I'm not sure even what the details are, but apparently if they were burrowed under the surface of the snow, they could have survived, but there's going to be enough left. And the ones that have survived, what they said, it will be like super ash borers. So
don't be, that's terrible news about super ash borers.
So yeah,
Right.
it's too bad it's hitting our community.
Well, thank you, Councillor Theresa Stehly, for joining us for Inside Town Hall. If you would like to get a hold of any of our city councilors, you can reach them at siouxfalls.org. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next month.